Sí, en Guatemala tenemos un 5%, 6% de la población, dueña de más del 80% de la tierra, y lo que resulta de todo ello es una sociedad violenta, es una sociedad que...
Land tenure and land ownership can be recognized as the root of all socioeconomic issues in Guatemala. As you can see in the image, the amount of land that is overused is way more prominent in areas with a small square kilometer area. Misuse of land is a real problem in Guatemala, and it is most likely due to land ownership problems that haven't been solved.
Tenemos derecho nosotros de estar aquí. Nuestros hijos necesitan dónde de vivir y nosotros ahorita dónde vamos a ir.
Gender equality in Guatemala has been declining. The country dropped 7 places in just 2 years. One of the largest areas of gender inequality is in politics. Although there have been attempts to make women more involved in politics, such as quota laws that would require at least 30% of candidates be women, these laws have never passed. General voter turnout is extremely low at about 50%, the majority of non-voters being women and the poor. This is because voter registration and polling stations are only placed in city centers, making it difficult for poorer citizens and those who live far away to find transportation. By bringing voter registration and polling stations to small villages, Guatemala can increase voter turnout, mainly female voter turnout, and gender equality. Implementing a continuous registration would mean that people don't have to register for every election, which would cut down costs dramatically in the long run. $2 billion can pay for computers and people to run registers and polling stations for several elections.
Guatemala is the most populous country in Central America and has the highest fertility rate in Latin America. It also has the highest population growth rate in Latin America because of its large reproductive age population. Almost half of their population is under the age of 19. Guatemala's total fertility rate has slowly declined over the past few decades due to limited government-funded health programs. However, the birth rate is still more than 3 children per woman and even higher among its rural and indigenous populations. They are currently in Phase 2 of the demographic transition model. We see a rise in population caused by a decline in the death rate while the birth rate remains high. This means Guatemala is experiencing the urbanization industrialization stage. I propose $1 billion be set aside for future projects that will provide the upcoming youth population with job opportunities. The mass utilization of labor can promote tourism and agribusiness sector opportunities. This monetary stimulus will bolster growth by increasing value, product quality, and integration into national and international markets. Despite Guatemala having the biggest economy in Central America, it also has the highest levels of inequality. In 2006, it was reported that 26.3% of Guatemala's population was living on less than or equal to $2 a day. Poverty is especially prevalent in rural areas throughout Guatemala and occurs primarily among the poorly educated and indigenous members of the population. In 2011, it was reported that 53.7% of Guatemalans live below the national poverty line. Although poverty reduction strategies emerged in the late 1980s and early 1990s, because of the recent natural disasters, Guatemala was forced to start from square one. Natural disasters affect food prices, which ultimately affect poor people the most. I propose an emergency action fund be granted $1 billion to provide relief to families devastated by natural disasters. This money will be essential to families who have lost their homes, have no place to stay, and no longer have jobs to support their families. Secondly, I propose an $800 million stimulus be given to the Works Progress Administration to secure more and better job opportunities. This is the most powerful tool to combat poverty because it stimulates economic growth and job creation for the poor. Lastly, I propose $200 million be granted to the Land Administration Act that aims at securing land tenure in rural municipalities.
Guatemala has an extremely complex economy with many interconnected factors. It is the largest economy in Central America with a GDP of $79.9 billion annually. It is ranked 65th most complex economy in the world according to the Economic Complexity Index. The country currently is running a trade deficit with total imports of $10.6 billion and imports of $9.2 billion. The major export of Guatemala is sugarcane, which makes up 12% of their total exports. Behind that is coffee, which is 8%, and then bananas and plantains, which is 6%. Agriculture is the largest sector in the economy and is a vital part of their exports. The largest partners for Guatemalan exports are the United States, with 38% of all exports, and then El Salvador consuming 10% of the exports. The largest import is petroleum, which constitutes 17% of the imports. Guatemala also has signed the Central American Free Trade Agreement, which is an agreement to low or no tariffs with all involved nations. These countries include the United States, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and the Dominican Republic. This allows increased textile productions of foreign companies in the CAFTA region. Guatemala is a member of the Central American Common Market, which is an organization that regulates the level of the external tariff from the countries outside the marketplace region. By signing the agreement, they have opened themselves up to foreign investment, and that combined with the free trade zones that Guatemala has implemented, they have enjoyed increased levels of exported goods in the past few years. In order to support the trend of growth in manufactured goods, I propose that we set aside $1 billion to continue the growth and development of these free trade zones, to increase foreign investment, and also to eliminate some of the inefficiencies associated with the zones. I also would like to set aside $1 billion as an emergency fund to help the agriculture sector if it is subject to a natural disaster like a hurricane or earthquake. By having this emergency fund, the damage done by natural disasters could be repaired easier and help this major source of the nation's income recover more quickly.
A major issue as far as agriculture in Guatemala has been deforestation. The forested areas in Guatemala have been steadily decreasing over the past few years. In 2001, 40% of Guatemala was forested, and that dropped to 37% by the end of 2005. Guatemala deforestation has been increasing due to the urbanization that has been taking place in Patan, a classic Mayan city. It is speculated that among the reasons for the classic Mayan collapse is widespread drought caused by the overwhelming deforestation of the tropical lowlands the Mayans inhabited. This may have in turn led to widespread warfare among Mayan city-states as populations scrambled to assert dominance over dwindling resources. The southern and central sections of Patan have been almost completely deforested, leading to local declines in annual rainfall marked by prolonged and warmer dry seasons. The northern third of Patan remains mostly intact for now, protected as the Mayan Biosphere Reserve. The Patan thus becomes an escape valve from pressures for land reform historically thwarted by Guatemala's agricultural elites. It is here that a modern-day battle is being waged over Guatemala's remaining forests. My solution would be to protect ancient city forested areas not being able to be cut down and use those trees for fruit trees such as bananas and mangoes, which have been proven to boost the economy in Guatemala.